Should I go all human and act as if AI did not exist? Should I jump on the AI bandwagon and accept to be reduced to work at half my rate from 2004,
Right.
2005? Or should I find some kind of balance, whether I agree with it or not?
Of course, clients want the tech, but what I'm finding is this human gateway where they interact. They're craving for that. Tell me how relieved you are when you pick up a phone call and you get a human, and maybe that human says, "So how are you today?" And you have a chance to say, "Actually, it's not a great day. This is something we're losing." Welcome to the AI Localization Think Tank series. This series is called Voices of the Industry, and we are really so grateful today to be joined by Patrice Dussault, who grew up in a tricultural family. Patrice has 32 years of experience in the business community, including 26 as a translator. He serves businesses, NGOs, translation agencies in a number of fields he'll talk about with us. He also has a lot of experience in Latin, which I'm actually particularly interested in. You're a ghostwriter, which is quite unique. And I'm especially interested in this detail that you have developed a proprietary, multidisciplinary, bilingual dictionary with over 250,000 terms. So we're going to come back to that as we go later through this interview, and just want to say welcome to you, Patrice, and thank you so much for joining us on the AI Localization Think Tank.
Actually, I'm the one who should be thanking you, Bridget, because it's a genuine pleasure for me to be here. And also, I love to share my experience, my observations, or the syntheses that I come up with as I comment, read, or exchange with the fellow translators, interpreters, and other industry professionals, more notably recently in the AI localization.
Fantastic. We do appreciate you so much. And I think I just want to start here. Patrice, you have created a massive following, building what I see as credibility and establishing the value of the human translator. And I think that success, aside from how good you are as a linguist, has a lot to do with trust, with authenticity. You are one of those few people I feel on LinkedIn who is just who you are. You're kind, you're very well spoken, very well informed. And I just wonder, do you feel that trust and authenticity? Has there ever been a crossroads, at least recently with AI, when you felt you had to compromise or change that sort of an image and then didn't or did? Because I feel like we're all being pulled in so many directions now, trying to figure out how do we brand or rebrand. Has that ever occurred or come up in your career?
In recent years, yes, a few times. And I've had discussions with people in the finance community, also with people in the marketing community, and also obviously colleague translators and interpreters and writers, because I started writing on LinkedIn in the fall of 2022, September to be more specific,
Right.
and ChatGPT came out in November of that same
Mm.
fall. So,
Wow.
so I had to intensify my activities on LinkedIn and my conversations as well. And as AI took hold, or more important role on our industry job descriptions, I had to question myself, question my role, and question the future of our professions.
Yeah.
And there were times when I wondered if I should, like, I thought of all possibilities, including the extremes,
Right.
because I needed the information from all points of view. And I
Hmm.
went, okay, should I go all human and forget that AI, or act as if AI did not exist? Should I jump on the AI bandwagon and accept to be reduced to an execution role and work at half my rate from 2004,
Right.
2005? Or should I find some kind of a balance halfway where I can embrace AI, use it as the new tool that is not going to disappear anyway, whether I agree with it or not?
Right.
And what role can I play in helping my colleagues and myself see more clearly as the dust starts to settle very slowly, but it is starting to settle? I came to the conclusion that in localization, as in other subfields of translation and interpreting, AI is here to stay. We have to work with it. But AI is a tool and it needs someone to handle. That someone should be human. I know that there are a lot of expressions and a lot of ideas that are traveling across our industry, across the world, the continents, and there are expressions like human in the loop, machine in the loop, or
Right,
expert
right.
in the lead. I came to the conclusion that as humans, we orchestrate the processes, the AI workflows, the large language models, or the translation memories that we use, or the machine translation tools we wish to use. And at the same time, at the other end of the process, we take the output and we have to edit it, adapt it, give it cultural nuance, voice, tone, style guide from clients, etc.
Mm.
So, and that leaves the machine in the middle, and the humans orchestrate at the beginning.
I'm
And
going to get you to that because I know this is going to be a really important part of this conversation. And first, I just want to thank you for actually really explaining and giving detail on this dilemma, because I think this has been a common conversation on specifically the language professional quote side of the industry. This has kind of been one of my goals in this space and for the last few years to try to have us all understand that, especially language professionals, is that the technology and language quote sides of the industry are one industry, and to understand this is a symbiotic relationship. But this dilemma is very common, and I just really want to highlight for our audience how you approached it. Instead of just seeing something coming that might either be painful, challenging, or difficult to handle, you said you researched, you were looking at it from a broad perspective, you considered other options, potentially other avenues for your own career. And I think this is such a valuable point for the audience. I mean, it is almost, I think no one would argue anymore that, AI is there for us. It's a tool, right? It is something that we are absolutely going to benefit from, but any tool, just like fire is a tool, and a chainsaw is a tool, these things need expert handling in order to be beneficial to us. Otherwise, they can be quite damaging. So I just thank you for sharing that, because oftentimes we'll see on LinkedIn, you being an influencer there, it seems like people assume that you might have had no struggle with how you got to where you are. And I can see just by the look on your face that that's true. And I again want to highlight that, making this very personal, I really feel that your credibility and your image is really built on this trust and authenticity thing. And on that note, I mean, you could even call it analog in a way. I'm finding it increasingly desired and sought out by clients. This personal trust feel. I mean, of course, clients want the tech, they want the top notch tech and the performance. But what I'm personally finding, and I wonder what you think on this, is that this human gateway where they interact, they're craving for that. They're craving for this, instead of a phone tree where we are just, tell me how relieved you are when you pick up a phone call and you get a human. I mean, this is rare, but we're just all and maybe that human says, so how are you today? And you have a chance to say, actually, it's not a great day or something. This is something we're losing. But I just wonder, how do you see this? Have you sensed this? And what do you think it means?
Okay, I love this question because I'm also a graduate historian. And through the ages, in the Western world alone, there have been many revolutions, as there must have been in other civilizations. There was the agrarian revolution from the 6th to the 9th century, a more technical revolution from the 11th to the 14th. There was the obviously massive industrial one in the 19th century. And we've had computers, and now it's the AI. AI is one of the most significant revolutions we've ever experienced in Western civilization, but more than likely other civilizations as well. What I noticed is that through every revolution, we don't necessarily destroy established practices or destroy jobs or destroy knowledge. Revolutions and new techniques or technology, depending on the era, bring about a reshuffling of the cards in our workspace and in our lives. They replace habits, beliefs, tools, traditions, and so on. Things do not necessarily vanish. They find a different place. Of course, during the Industrial Revolution, England and then the rest of the world, manual workers were not replaced. They became machine operators. And of course, with the rapid growth of the production of volumes throughout the 19th and the 20th century, the demand for workforce was so high that people could reconvert from manual work only to machine operators or later computer operators and so on, supervisors, of course. And it's the same thing I think is going to happen to us here. Human translation is not going to disappear because it remains critical in communications that have consequences in the legal, medical, and engineering fields. Obviously, nobody wants airplanes to fall from the sky with passengers, and so on and so on. Also, in creative fields like marketing, the human touch, we are in the middle of reshuffling our cards. I feel that I'm in the middle of a revolution that I have studied as a historian. Now I get to be in the middle of it and experience it myself. I'm part of the shuffling and I get to have a say in it. So it's very fascinating for me.
And if I can interrupt just that part, you do get to have a say in it. We all get to have a say in it. And I think by ignoring it, we let it happen. And then we maybe have to join ranks a couple years down the line, but it could be something we don't prefer. And that's why, influencing as much as we can and speaking about how to shape it is so critical. I do want to say, I noticed speaking of all the revolutions that you're talking about, the unique thing I think about this particular AI revolution is the speed. I mean, it's just happening so fast. I feel it's almost humanly impossible to keep up. I mean, we all are doing our best. We're reading these reports. Forecasting is becoming very difficult. Working as a consultant now, I actually build in guarantee with several months after a consulting effort because this will bridge the space between what is currently best practices and what may be 3 to 6 months. And along those lines, even what we're talking about today won't be published for about 6 to 8 weeks. We're hoping everything we say is going to still be relevant. But I just wonder, about this factor of speed and burnout. Is there anything you would like to offer by way of advice? Do you think that burnout is affecting not only our industry, but maybe clients, the world at large? I feel like it's a very important topic that we could talk about for an entire hour or more. This area I'm finding it's becoming important, I think. What is your opinion or thoughts on that?
I agree with you. Burnout is a clear and present danger in our profession and many other professions. Here in Quebec, the French-speaking province of Canada, we have a major problem with burnout and other mental health issues among the medical and nursing staffs. And more of them have to seek counsel on a personal basis because they have difficulty dealing with pressure on performance, pressure from the patients, pressure from speed. And it's the same thing for us. Everything goes too fast. I mean, when I go visit my doctor, I have difficulty imagining her mental load because she has to grasp what I'm saying at the speed of light. Then she's on computer and her phone at the same time, coming with ideas and a prognostic and this and that. And it's complex and it's speed. And she says, I like you, but I have to let you go because there's a deadline after you. And she goes from 8 a.m. till I don't know when in the afternoon. And it's almost nonstop. And I know she eats very fast. Speed is of the essence, but speed is dangerous as well. And for us, it's dangerous. It's threatening as well. Speed is dangerous. It's not just speed. It's also a threat because since the dust has not fully settled yet, we don't know exactly the career prospects that are going to be presented to us in 6 months or 2 years. Job descriptions are not developed yet because the roles themselves are not defined at all, depending on the role. And within the AI workflows, we don't know everything that's going to happen. We don't know the salary ranges. We don't know how people are going to plan for their retirement in 6 months, 2 years, or after that. So speed is scary. Speed is dangerous. And I deal with it by keeping my ear to the ground, by reading, commenting, exchanging with people every day, at least from Monday to Friday, and from their either colleagues or members of complementary professions. Of course, a lot of them are from the technology sector. And I try to put everything together, workout syntheses. Some make it to my posts, some stay in my mind, some I use in interviews. And they help me make decisions. They help me refine my approach to prospects on LinkedIn, but they also help me understand what's going to happen. So keeping our ear to the ground is one of the keys to help us stay calm and carry on, like the British say. And
I also find that it seems very logical, practical. This is not big news, but I feel like when we're speaking to clients who are asking about, can we add this or should we implement that? I feel like a lot of times people are forgetting, especially clients, that in order to quote, do AI well, we have to learn it. And
yes,
learning takes time, right? You don't just jump in and become a doctor and start treating people. You need to acquire a body of knowledge. You need to practice for a while in order to know how to use it. And I think that this time factor that we all need to learn it before implementing it, it's just kind of getting jumped over in many different situations so that the results are either, rather dangerous, they're shoddy, they're not as good as people are expecting. And it just clearly makes perfect sense because although the technology, let's use specifically our industry, I do feel that the language technologies that currently exist, AI, machine translation, and post editing, they're phenomenal and they can make many people who are not language professionals with no body of knowledge behind them in terms of languages, they can make them feel like they are language professionals. So what I'm actually saying is there are quite a lot of there's a new sort of brand of a linguist, and this is not just since AI, but kind of the last, I would say, 6 to 7 years, where people are capitalizing on these technologies, producing product which may look good enough, but they're not really aware of those nuances. And so then other people who have those language skills and may not be interested in upgrading their tech skills, those are the people we need. We need those people to get on board with upgrading the tech because honestly, they should be sitting in the seats of the individuals who are just taking advantage of these technology advances. How do we draw a clear picture of these coming job descriptions? I'm asking you to look into a crystal ball here because this is very difficult. Do we move up the market and join luxury industries where everything is bespoke and we definitely need that human touch? What is your take there? How do we draw these descriptions, these pictures of coming jobs?
yeah, that's an excellent question. Besides the communications with consequences that I touched on earlier, and of course, the creative jobs in marketing, where we need to touch people in order to get a reaction or a change in behavior or adoption of a product. Moving upscale to the luxury industry where everything's bespoke is one of the other avenues because of course you cannot approach a discerning customer who's considering buying a 30,000 euro handbag with automatic translation or sentences that sound like nothing.
Right,
And of
right.
course it's everything is so personal. it's
Yes.
it's the attention to detail. It's the research that the companies go into, like their representatives, they study their clients and they know how to guide them through the store because they say, well, I know that you're into this or you collect that or your hobby is that. And we thought of you because we have this new collection and we kept you in mind when we developed it. Everything is about research and personal contact.
Exactly. Yes.
At the same time, we have to remind ourselves that we cannot lose our ability to touch other people through storytelling or other techniques, but as long as they are authentic, as long as they're heartfelt, genuine, honest.
Yes.
Of course, because every time we address, not just in the luxury industry, in marketing or in communications with consequences, every time we address people and we wish to get a reaction or the adoption of a new behavior or so on, when you address your staff, your employee base, your shareholders, your suppliers, your customers, you have to touch them, have to make them want to buy into your project,
Absolutely.
buy into a change. And if you just sent communications that were written or translated by AI, you're not going to touch anybody's heart. The essence of those communications is to touch people in a way that will make them want to jump on your wagon
And engage.
and connect first, then engage, give them the desire, make them identify with the project. So whether you're a private company, you're a government trying to sell a new social program or whatever other program, whether you're an NGO conveying information in the field to your agents in zones, for example, you need to touch people. You can process information with your brain, but you will remember with your heart. The information you can forget, but the story behind the information, your heart will remember. And it helps people carry your message for a longer period of time.
You make me remember an example of this. I have a very proficient colleague in South America, and she had said to me a couple of years ago, as there was increasing amounts of machine translation on websites, even to sell clothing or some big brands that were just incorporating machine translation. She had said to me, I see so many crummy translations into Spanish where they're trying to sell me makeup or they're trying to sell me shoes. And as soon as I see either a mistranslated word, even punctuation that's gone wrong, it makes me feel like someone just didn't care about me. And I don't, engage further. And I think this is just so important. Also, if you think about slogans, like these great slogans like Nike had, just do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's, I'm loving it. If you think about how much time, energy, money went into those 3 words in each case, marketing wise, and they do resonate with us, we still say something like, oh, just do it, right? Because Nike made this a part of the pop culture. The value of those words in translation is equally powerful, equally valuable. So yeah, is perfectly well taken. And I would encourage any buyers, any stakeholders, any translation providers to really understand this connection, specifically if you have a message that needs to touch someone or that someone needs to respond to. Reaching a person in the way that they need to be, as Patrice said, that they need to be touched in order to engage. It's so essential. And I do want to go to the area that you mentioned a little bit before. How do you think we define the machine's role for the future? I know you mentioned something, and I think it's model humans orchestrating upstream, kind of like intake, gateway, and then reviewing downstream. What is your opinion for how we define the machine's role? And I'm going to give you some credit here because this is hard to pinpoint and to make it stick. But what's your current opinion on that?
My current opinion, and it may change in 6 months to 2 years, of course.
Right.
In the current state of affairs, I see the machine in the middle of the process where, of course, upstream we orchestrate, downstream we edit, change, adapt, etc. I see the machine as someone receiving instructions and doing something extraordinary with it. My experience with ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, and a few others, because I do test those tools and I do use them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to talk about them.
Right.
And I find them very, very impressive. One of my friends who owns 2 agencies in Paris, she said, consider AI like a super intelligent, overly gifted little child. So intelligent, it will create extraordinary things for you, but only if your instructions are complete, detailed, and laser sharp. And without the exact guidance, you have to put guide rails left and right and front and rear.
Absolutely.
And guide the machine through the whole process. It's like a sewing machine through which you have to guide a piece of garment. And if your hands are not there from beginning to end, the stitch is going to come out askew.
It could, right.
Yes. And so that's how I see the role of the machine. What it does is extraordinary. It's powerful.
Right.
It's fast.
Right.
I'm surprised. And sometimes I smile alone in my office when I modify some of my pictures for my LinkedIn posts, because I wanted to get rid of this element that had no business being there. And it works, but only to the extent that my guidance is detailed and laser sharp, scalpel sharp. Yes.
I feel like for me, that's why I really liked GPT-5, even though I know there was just so much controversy about it, because I feel like it requires more authoritative, intellectual, informed input and guidance. Every version of it had different pluses and minuses. And like I said, I know a lot of people, I've read so many articles that people say, oh, it sucks, it's this is bad. I feel like it's made me less lazy in using AI. I need to know what I'm asking for. I need to prepare a little better. I will get a nicer output. I will get interesting questions. So for me, I think it was an interesting transition. And I think hopefully that we will see more of that in the future with future models. And I think lastly, I end with a question that I think is essential to everyone in our industry. It's a personal point for me as a consultant for many years in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility, having some struggles these days. But I think despite what is legal, what is required, all of the different laws that come and go and change with the winter administrations, I wonder if you would talk about the role that multilingual content plays in making our societies more inclusive. And along those lines, I always like to add more inclusivity means certain populations will buy more of the things that you may be selling, or they will learn more of the things that are public service announcements. I always like to add that because we sit in boardrooms and everyone's talking about bottom line and ROI, but just along the lines of inclusivity, how would you say our role as multilingual content creators makes societies more inclusive?
I love that question. As a personal fan of the civil rights movements of the 1960s, you got me here. I love it. I also love the word that you brought earlier, quoting that woman, care.
Care.
It's about caring. It's more than just communication. It's more than just trying to impress. It's about caring. It's about being present for everybody. You cannot let anybody behind, especially in an era of rapid change where people have difficulty finding their marks and the general direction. Yes, multilingual content creation is critical now for, first of all, our governments and their state programs.
Yes.
I know that this is traditionally tied to the official languages that respective countries. In Canada, there are two, but there are more than 200 languages spoken regularly in Canada. Of course, Belgium has 3 languages, Switzerland 4, and so on.
Right.
But that is becoming arbitrary to a certain extent because of the population movements we have witnessed in the past years or maybe a couple decades. And now we end up with massive influx of people who don't necessarily speak French, English, German, etc., but who still need to integrate the labor market, have access to public service. And we're asking them to learn the language and the culture and take their marks in our respective countries at the speed of light. And once again, speed is another problem.
Right.
Our current and previous governments have not invested in welcoming infrastructure and welcoming structures. So we lack the space to welcome them and train them, and we lack the staff to do the same thing. So we're asking people to adapt to our country, and they cannot because we don't have the infrastructure and the structure to help them do that within a 6-month time frame, for example. So beyond the official languages of French, English, German, Dutch, whatever, we have to, because those people need to integrate the labor force now. They need to send their children to school now. If something happens to them, they need to go to the hospital now, or they may require social services. And all of those need to be accessible in their respective languages. I mean, of course, there are 7,100 languages left in the world active, and we cannot offer services in all of those, but we can offer services in a number of them based on the demographic weight of every cultural subgroup, like Spanish, Portuguese. I'm thinking of Canada, of course, my home country, but some other Italian and so on. It's difficult to strike a balance when the situation is evolving so quickly. But yes, it's a matter for governments of making all social programs and all official communications understood by everybody so that all the citizens, none left behind, can take part actively in our society. They cannot take part actively in our society or receive services or help should they need it if they cannot understand or make themselves understood, like in front of the courts or in a police station or in a hospital. So that's for the public or the state side of things. Now, a similar thing for companies. Companies from Canada, the US, France, Germany, of course, are welcoming a lot of new workers from overseas. We have to train them, and it's the same thing. We have to offer them the human resources support that all the other employees are getting. We have to train them in a language they will understand. and explain financial planning and so on.
And I feel that there are too many people, stakeholders, however we identify them, that forget that once this education occurs, once this training occurs, these individuals become part of an active workforce that influence the economy, that affect all of us. I feel like it's really important, just because if we're really trying to get our message to hook into these large corporations, having clear understanding of how this will benefit their bottom line, clearly opening up new markets. All of these things are pretty logical, but the arguments sometimes fail when we don't remember to add those little details in, because again, a lot of decisions are made just on the basis of numbers. Making sure that individuals of other nationalities do become part of an active working society, and not to mention the wonderful social things that we enjoy from meeting people in other cultures, which is probably what really makes life worthwhile. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'm going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, as we end up. So what I feel like we've talked about a lot of things which do sort of all come together. I really appreciate you highlighting the care word, because I found that also hit me when my friend said, it just, you need to feel like someone cares about you when you are reading material in your language. The challenge of speed, not only keeping up, but training is very difficult. Your personal commitment to continuously adapt and try to stay at the forefront. Do you have a last piece of advice as we close today for linguists who are maybe stuck in a panic mode, or maybe they haven't quite jumped on to the newest technology? Maybe they're fearing they don't have a future. Do you have a piece of actionable advice or two that you think would benefit them?
Yes, I do. A few, actually. First of all, not knowing what's happening, not understanding, not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel is the scariest part of it. Second of all, there are a number of channels and programs that can help you, and you can find them through LinkedIn among other channels. There's a Quebec-based school for translators and interpreters that gives them marketing, branding, authority building tools, along with AI tools to help them first see, understand what's going on. Second, find their own place according to their skills, training, and experience, and give them a path forward. So once all of that is defined, the tension comes down by a big margin. That's very important. You can find consultants on LinkedIn and other channels as well for marketing, branding, authority building, trust building, and so on. Because the important thing in a rapidly changing market where linguists, language service providers, and clients, whether they're governments, companies, NGOs, and so on, they need to understand what's going on. They need for us to hold their hand and show them their options, and tell them with all the discernment possible what's good for them, what they need, what they don't need, where they should not put any money or time because it's useless for them, and where they should put their money and time. There's also that it's important for us, where everything is changing so quickly as linguists, to keep our head out of the water, to stay visible, and to make our target audience understand who we are, what we do, and what problem we solve for our target audience. And only then will they understand what we can do for them and why they should contact us. Because I can say that I have so many diplomas, or I succeeded doing this and I translated that, or I changed this, my client is so happy and they sent me social proof. But I have to prove that all that our colleagues have accomplished is repeatable, and that potential clients can benefit from the repetition of your success. And so we need to be visible. We need to become the beacons to help people, because our professions, language professions, are not regulated.
Right.
We have to provide the guidance ourselves.
Right.
Following the example of one of my colleagues from Germany, I have developed a cultural audit program for future clients that I'm still working on. It's almost done, but to help them think of Canada as a new market to implement their company in, and so Canada and French Canada. And so we can come up with new ideas to help them find a foothold in new markets when they're in expansion mode. We have to be innovative, creative, reinvent ourselves, not afraid to get out of our comfort zone, which is difficult.
Right.
Many of us, including myself, are introverts, and getting out there is very, very scary.
Right.
But we have to, yes.
It's just the difference a lot of times between going to a translators conference and interpreters conference. I years and years ago noticed there's so much more chatting at interpreter conferences. There's different personality. Generally, interpreters and translators can be the same person, but a lot of times they're not. And just understanding there is an introspective nature to people who have chosen language services. There's a strangeness about the way that we are fascinated with etymology and words, and how we could sit there for hours just dissecting a few words. So I agree with you. I feel like it's great advice for our audience to hear you understand that, no matter who you are or where you started or currently, you just make that decision. And nobody has to know you're an introvert. Honestly, you go stand up in front of an audience, they're not going to know it. It just depends on how you present yourself. I think, in short, Patrice, I'm so grateful for your time today. I hope this has been valuable to our audience. We really appreciate that you've been able to provide some actionable tips for our audience, and we look forward to the next time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today in the AI Localization Think Tank. This is Voices of the Industry, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.